When a new automotive technician is faced with diagnosing a faulty electrical system on a vehicle, one of the biggest challenges may be properly identifying the correct components of the suspect electrical system. Translating a vehicle's electrical schematic into the actual components of a car is often where mistakes can happen, and the end result can be inaccurate diagnosis, or even worse, we can cause damage to the vehicle's computer systems. Effectively using the information provided by the service manual is our best option, but it is not uncommon for the service information to be incomplete. We must use our best detective skills to confirm what we are looking at on the car is actually what we see in the wiring schematic. We will use the same wiring schematic we looked at previously to find each of the circuit's components on the vehicle it was designed for. The first component we will locate is the central junction box. The information found at the top right of the unit explains that the CJB is located behind the left side of the vehicle dashboard. To locate the CJB, we will first open this access hatch. Note the fuse panel legend on the back of the hatch. With the hatch open, we can now see the central junction box. If we need to closely inspect or test the CJB, we will need to remove the panel covering the lower portion of the driver's side of the dashboard. The next component we need to locate is fuse number 33. If the fuse locations are not numbered, you can use the legend we found previously to help identify the position of the correct fuse. In this case, the fuse positions are numbered, and we have confirmed that fuse 33 is a 20 amp fuse as described in the wiring schematic. Next, we will need to locate connectors C270B and C270C. Sometimes the service information will provide a connector component locator that will show you a picture of the connector as well as information regarding the connector's color and how many pin terminals are in it. In this case, the service information does not provide this information, so we will have to identify them ourselves. Another helpful tool to help us find connectors, grounds, and splices is to use zoning diagrams. All connectors, grounds, and splices use a numbered system to help technicians identify which part of a vehicle a certain component can be found. Using this zoning diagram as a reference, we can see that any component numbered between 100 and 199 would be found in the engine compartment. Any component numbered between 500 and 599 would be located in the left front door. The connectors we are looking for are numbered C270B and 270C. The chart tells us that these connectors will be found within the instrument dashboard assembly. The wiring schematic shows us that the connectors appear to be attached to the central junction box. We will start our search there. The CJB appears to be fastened to its mounting frame by 2 screws shown here. After removing the fasteners and inspecting the rear of the junction box, we find that it has many different connectors. To be absolutely sure we have found the correct connector for testing, we can use some of the information found in the wiring schematic to help us confirm. We will first locate connector number C270B. If we take into account the wiring colors, we can see that there are 2 separate conductors, one black and green and one black and blue, that enter the connector at pin terminal location number 3. We can now look at all of the connectors at the back of the CJB and find the one that has these 2 same colored wires leading to terminal position 3 of its connector. In this image, you can see the black and green and black and blue wires entering the single terminal number 3 location at the connector. The terminal numbers are usually printed on the connector body. Next, we will need to locate C270C. The wiring diagram tells us that an orange and blue wire enters the connector at pin terminal location number 8. In this image, you can see the orange and blue wire coming out of the connector at the correct pin terminal location. Next, we want to locate the horn relay. The service information did not provide us with a detailed description of its location, but the wiring diagram tells us it is part of the central junction box. Fortunately, there was only one relay attached to the junction box. We confirmed that it was the correct relay by holding the relay with our hand while activating the horn. We could feel the relay switch click internally when the horn was sounded. Next, we want to identify the parts of the low current side of the circuit. The clock spring and horn switch are part of the steering column and will require some disassembly to access. After removing the steering wheel airbag, we find both the upper connector of the clock spring shown here, as well as the conductors going to and from the horn switch shown here. Notice that the wiring schematic does not give us wiring colors or pin terminal information for this part of the circuit. If you need to do testing in this area, it is of utmost importance that you trace the wires correctly between the horn switch and the clock spring connector. To access the bottom connector of the clock spring, we will have to remove the steering column trim covers. Once removed, we can access the connector body. As we did before, we must confirm the proper wire colors and pin positions before we can trust that we have found the correct circuit. The schematic tells us that there is a black and blue conductor entering the connector at pin position 6 and a black conductor leaving the connector at pin position 7. We will now find the two ground positions listed on the diagram, G204 and G102. G204 is described as being located at the left A pillar. By referencing a zoning chart, the number G204 also tells us that the ground location should be within the instrument dashboard assembly. Looking under the dashboard near the A pillar, we find two separate ground locations. To be absolutely certain which ground is which, we may have to trace the wire back to the clock spring assembly. Ground number G102 is described as being located at the right front of the engine compartment. The zoning chart also confirms that the ground location is in the engine compartment area. Looking under the hood at the right front of the engine compartment, we find this ground position. Finally, we need to locate the vehicle's horn assembly. The wiring diagram tells us that it is located behind the bumper bracket. On this vehicle, we could just barely see the horn hiding below the left front headlight. To access it for testing, we would require loosening of the grille and removal of the headlight. With the headlight removed, we can see the horn hiding behind the bumper bracket. As you can see, confidently finding and identifying components on a vehicle for testing or replacement can be challenging and time-consuming. Effectively using all of the tools available to you can help you be an efficient and successful diagnostic technician.